Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wanted a stronger, healthier heart or to heal from heart disease for good, then do we have the Heart Revolution show for you. Today I'll be talking with Razi Berry, founder of the award-winning journal Naturopathic Doctor News and Review and the authoritative naturopathic research for patients, the natpath.com, and the creator of the Heart Revolution. And that's just what I want to talk with her about today, about the heart-body connection and natural solutions to heal the heart and keep it healthy in the first place. That plus we'll talk about growing exotic fruit in the desert, Harry Potter herbs and magic, baking and chemistry, the power of unschooling, who in the world are Luna chocolate milk and candy licorice, and what in the world a Scottish fold has to do with anything. Gotcha. So welcome to the show, Razi. Are you ready to shine?
I am ready, Michael. I'm ready.
Excellent. And if you hadn't laughed, I was going to pull out Nuts the squirrel. So before we dive right into things, can you tell us, going to a serious note for a minute, what was your life like before age 14?
Well, before age 14, I lived a really kind of average American suburban life. I was the oldest of 4 children, and, I just kind of lived that all-American life, went to school, came home, played in the backyard, read books, played with the kids in the neighborhood. Didn't really venture too far from the world that I lived in, the suburbia. Most of the nature that I was exposed to was like the neighborhood park or the chlorine-filled swimming pool in the backyard.
So then what happened in your life at 14?
Well, at age 14, I came down, I guess that's what I call it, with an eating disorder, anorexia nervosa. And, the cause of these things, emotional, spiritual, cultural, but it was, it was pretty severe. And then towards the end of that year, I was in the hospital. I was dying, Michael, of heart failure, which is a complication of anorexia and eating disorders. There's nervous system effects from the electrolyte imbalance. And, our heart is mostly muscle, at least physically, mostly muscle. So my heart was just so weak that it was failing. So, I was dying, and my parents had to make, their plans. The priest, because I was raised Catholic, was brought in to do the last rites ceremony. So it was, it was much different than the childhood I had lived previously.
And wow. Were you dying of a broken heart?
I would say yes. I feel like, pretty much all illnesses, I believe, any dis-ease is in a way self-inflicted, whether it's through lifestyle choices we make, stress because of the lifestyle that we choose. Even when it's something environmental, I don't like to be blaming, but it's still we as a collective community, as a collective humanity, do to ourselves in a way. So, yes, I was dying of a broken heart because I definitely was not practicing self-love. Now, what is self-love to a 14-year-old girl? I would have to ask my 14-year-old self to answer that, but I would definitely say yes. And my family's heart was breaking too.
So what happened, and what was your experience? We've talked about this a little bit before. What was your experience, and how did you come out of it from there?
So, nothing was working as far as treatment wise. And when I landed in the hospital, we didn't really think at first that was going to be the end. They thought all we have to do is get her to eat right again. But my heart was just not strong enough. So what ended up being a hospital stay to give me some extra calories ended up really being, the final goodbye. So I remember the hospital staff having this real disdain. It was not a warm, happy thing. Maybe it was the culture at the time, but they weren't really, at least from my perspective back then, it was very kind of harsh. And I remember my mother had brought my brother in to say goodbye. He was 4 at the time. And I remember the doctor saying, this is a shame. She's doing it to herself. And suddenly I was watching him say that from the top of the hospital room. I was looking down on his head. He had his hair combed over, shiny black hair, and I saw my little brother's chubby hands, and suddenly, like, everything in the room became very multidimensional, and I felt like I could see, every angle from above, and I could feel my little brother's kind of confusion. I could feel my mother's heartbreak. I could feel the doctor's frustration, and then suddenly I was in this like orb. The way I explain it to myself is like being like inside a dewdrop, and the sun's reflection is just bouncing off each other from, like 1,000-fold. And it
Wow.
was this incredible feeling of love, and it felt so good because I was so ashamed. I was sad. I was scared. I was basically, addicted to my situation as well. Um, and at that moment, I thought, wow, I just never want to leave this feeling, this beautiful feeling of love. It was just indescribable. And I was in that space, and I felt like all this love and all this, the relationships and even like generations of love, I felt was like just being downloaded into my heart, Michael. And it was just so beautiful and overpowering. And I did not in any way want to go back to that feeling of fear and shame and embarrassment and mostly being scared. I was a little girl. But then and I don't remember if it was like told to me in words or how it was conveyed to me, but what I got from that moment, or who knows how long that lasted, right? This infinite moment that I experienced, it was basically saying that all the love that you're feeling right now is right where you are, that you don't need to leave for that to happen.
Mhm.
And it was just like this soothing balm of understanding that love is really all there is. That sounds so simple and maybe even contrite, but that love is everything, and that you don't have to go to some other place or some other dimension to find that love. And it was really incredible.
And so and thank you for sharing on that. You came back.
I did. I came back, and it was like sudden. It was like a sudden kind of like a jolt. And my mother and my brother were standing in the same place. So again, I don't know. Like, it felt like that it felt like a really long time, but maybe it was milliseconds in this world. But I came back, and I healed. I left the hospital just a few days later. It was unbelievable. I remember just my mom calling the priest and was saying, like, what did you do? And it really had nothing to do with him, I don't think. And the nurses, and my mom not really wanting to tell anyone. Like, I told her about the experience and one of the nurses, and that was really all. And I don't know if they told the doctor or not. He was just kind of a grump. But what I do remember is I completely healed. My heart rate was strong. My effusion was normal. Everything just completely resolved. And I went back home, and I started to just, like, my fear of eating
Mhm.
went away. The challenges that came after that were more like I was kind of embarrassed when I went back to school and, things like that. But I healed, Michael. It was amazing.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
So if we fast forward from there, when did, because you've had a few other pretty serious or substantial health challenges in your life, when did you run into chronic fatigue?
Yes. So, after that experience when I was young, I was constantly kind of searching for that beautiful, magical feeling again. So I found myself diving into learning about all sorts of religions and spiritual practices. And I was kind of a nerd in that sense. Like, so my whole life I was kind of searching for that. And I think that's common for people that experience an NDE.
Mhm.
We kind of really want to feel that again. So I felt like I was on a pretty healthy path spiritually, but I was working really high stressed environment, and I wasn't really taking care of myself physically as far as like stress, and I was eating enough calories, but I wasn't really choosing the right nutrition. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
understand the role that toxins play in the products I used. And so I fell ill almost suddenly with chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia. I just got, this extreme body pain, daily migraines. I would lose vision in my left eye from the migraines. My menstrual cycle was all messed up. My body just was not thriving. And I went from doctor to doctor to doctor who basically, they didn't really believe in the word fibromyalgia back
Mm-hmm.
then. This was more than 15 years ago. And finally, a doctor said to me, you need to go on disability. And I was thinking, really, like what I've already overcome in my life before, that now this? Are you kidding me? I had never married or never had started a family, which were the big dreams, starting a family in my life. And I was terrified once again. And I thought, like, how am I going to heal this time? Like, nobody seemed to be able to help me except for give me just handfuls of medication, Michael, something to go to sleep at night,
Mm-hmm.
something to wake up in the morning, something for the pain, something to counteract the effects of that, just nonstop. So when I said I didn't want to take all these medications, then they say, well, it's all in your head. I mean, I was actually told that it was all in my head. So I was so confused. These people were telling me that it was all in my head, but I was suffering so much that I couldn't work. And then I just decided, you know what, I healed once before, and I'm going to do it again. And so I went on this. I became like a detective, and
Cool.
just sought out everything that I could. There weren't as many resources on the internet back
Mm-hmm.
then, so I had to go to the library and check out books and go to like university libraries. And I finally found naturopathic medicine. Now, you asked me in the beginning what my childhood was like, and I forgot to let you know that it was very allopathic. Like I was not breastfed. I was completely vaccinated. I was given antibiotics like it was candy, every
Mm-hmm.
time I sneezed. My mom didn't know any better. That was just the world, the community we lived in. And I thought that any type of healer that wasn't an MD was a quack. I thought chiropractors were quacks. I thought DOs were quacks. I thought, just you name it, acupuncturists, like no way. So I was afraid to try natural medicine. But that ended up being just the second half of the whole, learning about the healing power of nature and how it brought back the idea that our mind and body are connected from what I experienced when I was really young.
Beautiful. So from there, one more health challenge, and then we're gonna dive more into the naturopathic world and talk about the heart. What happened? I'm almost afraid to ask this. Infertility challenges.
Yeah, so I found naturopathic medicine, and I was healing from the fibromyalgia. I went through some real detoxification protocols and changed the way I ate and really learned about, all these things, the natural lifestyle and natural healing. And so the pain, the fatigue, the headaches that were gone, I was off those medications and taking some supplements instead. But the one thing that just was really heartbreaking for me is I kept having miscarriage after miscarriage after miscarriage. I had 6 miscarriages in 5 years. And, at this point, I was in my late 20s, early 30s.
Mm-hmm.
And people are having children later now. But, 10 years ago, I remember the doctor calling me like advanced maternal age. It was terrifying, and I really felt like I needed to go deep inside. I was doing everything right, you know, nutritionally and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So I went to study hypnotherapy because I wanted to go back to that kind of mind-body connection. And I thought
Yeah.
if I dove deep inside that, not necessarily to become a hypnotherapist, but to get inside my own mind and have all that practice every day for several weeks. And that really helped. It helped me to realize what I needed to let go of, kind of like you've got to prune the tree for it to
Mm-hmm.
fruit. And I found those answers. So it was definitely the combination of naturopathic medicine and spiritual mind-body healing. Now I have two beautiful, naturally conceived daughters.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
What was it that you had to, not that you can encompass it in one little nutshell, but maybe you can try, what was it that you had to let go of?
Well, the big thing was my career. I was working in real estate in the new homes industry here in Phoenix, Arizona, that was just booming. I was making incredible amounts of money, and that was hard to let go of. You know, it was hard. It was stressful, and it was hard to let go of. But I wasn't following my heart, and I really had this love from naturopathic medicine because of the experience that I had with it, and because it's the one medicine that really accepts spirituality in its paradigms. So I had wanted to start a journal of naturopathic medicine, but I was so afraid to start something from scratch and leave this, like, cash cow. I mean, it was hard work, but it was just kind of just the money was coming in, and I had to make the hard decision to give that up, and I did. And I just took the nest egg that I had saved, which wasn't very big at all because I'd spent a lot of money on healthcare, and started Naturopathic Doctor News and Review, which I called my first child. And Michael, after I started that, it's like getting pregnant got easy for me.
You had birthed one. So taking us forward in this journey, because I'm amazed at how you've kept your heart open. In recent years, you've had a lot of challenges.
Yeah, that's life, isn't it? Life is always giving us lessons, and they're definitely not always easy. Just like when we're in school, if the lesson's easy, we're not learning something new. So yeah, in the last 3-year period, I have had some challenges. I lost my sister. She died suddenly. My marriage ended, and my father died. And during those times, and in any time of stress or loss, I would almost have this like psychic chest pain again, right? We all have kind of our weakness. And even though my heart had healed, I would have this chest pain during times of stress. And it reminded me again that like these emotional scars we have are physical and spiritual. And I needed to pay attention to my heart again. And like you said so beautifully, I had to keep it open, because when you close it off, there's pain, whether it's physical, emotional. Pain happens when you close something off.
I know when when my heart starts to hurt, and when you get in touch, you can really feel it hurt. I'll put my hand over my heart and go back to it, and I love myself. I love myself. I love myself.
Beautiful.
And years ago, I passed out a week after having an operation. There was exactly a year to the day, almost to the hour, of when I'd been hit by a car. And I remember when I passed out, my heart started to do something weird, and then the screen went gray. Unfortunately, I was driving a car. It's an absolute miracle. My car found the guardrail and not the cars around, and I woke up heading towards the other side of the highway and corrected without overcorrecting it. Since that time, if my heart does something a little bit weird, I get all nervous, but I go right to Om. I go Om, and all of a sudden the heart goes right back to perfect.
Coherence.
Yes, exactly. So let's start diving into the heart. And first, before we go there, what do you mean the mind and body aren't separate?
Well, we call it mind-body medicine and in integrative medicine and in naturopathic medicine. But to me, that still talks of this like duality. When we say mind and body, that they're separate things. I think that Candace Pert, the illustrious scientist who's now left this world, she said it best, simplest, that the body is the subconscious mind. Our body is our mind. I mean, yes, we can have these experiences. My near-death experience definitely felt like it was not in my body. However, if I was not still alive in this physical plane, I would not be able to tell you about it. So we don't know what that experience is like. Even astral travel, out-of-body experiences, I believe it is still connected to our body because, again, we are still living as we have those. So I believe that in this physical space, our consciousness is this antenna, filter, sponge, whatever word you want to use, that we experience the greater consciousness around us, but we also are that. We're so much more than this, but we are also this. I mean, when you think about our body and the life force inside of us and all living things, you can't just take that life force out and there's not just a lump of cells. I mean, the life force is that. The life force is constantly in each moment weaving together matter out of nothing. Reading these scripts that have been passed down from generations of your genes, and the world around us is deciding which of these are going to be turned off and on. I mean, it's just so magical, such a miracle that we try to describe it as mind-body, but I just think that it would be great to come up with a different word, because life is both.
Well, you had mentioned a word when we last spoke, bodyful.
Yes. Bodyful. Bodyful is I use what I call bodyful meditation to help me to get back to that place of love. And we can talk more about that later if you want, but I was never a good meditator because having to just close my eyes, be quiet, and try to kind of go somewhere else never worked for me. And I find that when I more take in and appreciate my senses and bring more of an awareness into my body, it's that type of inward that trying to really feel those senses, feel your heart beating, feel the oxygen flow into your bloodstream. I mean, you can really consciously, these things are really happening. You can feel them if you really practice it. And that bodyful experience is what helps me to stay centered in times of loss or grief or devastation or fear. And I think being bodyful helps us to experience everything that we are.
I like that. To use another word, you are embodied rather than being in a meditation where you are disembodied, when you're shutting it down and saying, I'm not going to take everything in. Instead, you're grounding, you're rooting yourself right back in your body, which is the gift of a vehicle you were given for this lifetime.
Right. I like that, embodied. That's nice.
So let's go from here and let's talk about the heart a little bit. What is going on with heart disease today?
Yeah, so we tend to not talk about heart disease as much as we do about other tragedies like cancer, for instance, autoimmune disease, environmental illness. But heart disease, even though it doesn't sound sexy, it is what's killing most all of us and killing us too early. I mean, yes, we're all going to leave this earth one day, but we're dying too early of heart disease. It's the leading cause of death in men and women. And Michael, this is a really scary statistic, but heart disease kills more women than all forms of cancer combined. So why we're not all just talking about it is hard to understand. It's an epidemic, and our hearts are so much more than what we think of as this mechanical pump that gets clogged like some piece of machinery. There's so much research now to show that our hearts are organs of intelligence. They're an endocrine organ. Your heart produces and releases hormones. Your heart has its own neural cell, so it's like its own little brain that is involved with cognition and even memory and learning and reward systems and addiction. I mean, our hearts are really at the center. I don't remember who I spoke to most recently, but they said to me, Razi, if I was going to say point to yourself, what would you do? And I was like this, and they're like, exactly. You point to your heart, right? Or we don't say, I want you to get out there and play that game with all your spleen, or all your head. All your head, yeah, exactly. So we've known for centuries that our heart, and through so many different, I did learn a lot about this when I was studying different religions, is that there's so many views about the heart. And, even in Judeo-Christian terms, it talks about, having a pure heart, loving God with all your heart. In Sufism, it's about a heart that knows God. I mean, just pretty much everywhere you go. It's about the heart. And so now we're starting to have science understand that. And for some reason, the conversation, Michael, hasn't caught up. I mean, we found out like in the 80s that there are these hormones that the heart produces that like ANF, and I can't pronounce it very well, but it helps regulate blood flow and kidneys, and it helps with your adrenals, which is your complete stress response, which makes a lot of sense when you think about how your heart's connected to emotions, how your heart can feel jittery or racing, or sad or tight. We also know that the heart has this electromagnetic field that that might sound woo-woo, maybe not to listeners of this Inspire Nation show. They're probably smarter than that.
Or if you've ever watched Care Bears.
or that.
Care Bear stare.
But we can measure those, brain waves. Well, a Heart Math Institute, which is also part of the Heart Revolution, has learned through their research that we can measure this heart field from 3 to 4 feet outside of our bodies. And this field can also get into coherence with people around us. And that explains a lot about why, certain relationships feel so good and others don't, and that kind of intuition that you get. So there's a lot of information coming out from your heart, and your heart takes in, that tells you about the world around you, the people around you. And then your heart rate variability is another just fascinating miracle, because we used to think that the heart was like this metronome that would just, if it's healthy, it would beat in regular intervals. But now we know that your heart is so adaptive, just like the rest of your body, that any environment you're in, whether it's a stressful situation or walk into a room with a change of temperature, or maybe there are more toxins in the air or the altitude, that your heart rate will vary to help you with, the metabolic needs. And it can also help you with your emotional needs, stress demands. So our heart is so intelligent. So then the question is, why are so many of us dying of heart disease?
And that gets back to, and we'll dive into a few of these as we go along, that gets back to what you were saying earlier. If our body is our subconscious and our hearts are breaking, what does that mean?
Yeah, there's like a definite disconnect there, isn't there? And, again, we don't have enough conversations about the emotional aspects of health, because all of our emotions are important. There's this other, these memes kind of like on social media and stuff that kind of would almost say that the only good emotions are like joy, right? It's very important. I mean, our hearts are going to break, right? We're going to feel grief, envy, anger, sadness, despair. But it's when I think our hearts break, because when we don't allow ourselves to fully feel those, we close ourselves off to them, that they can do the most damage. I think we have to listen to the heartbreak and ask us, like, what does it want from us? What does it need us to do to transcend, to change, to make a different choice, whether it's in our work, in our relationships, in the food choices that we make, in the time we go to sleep at night. I think that the disconnection from nature, Michael, is what ultimately breaks our heart. We're getting messages from, our heart and our mind and the world around us, and we don't pay attention to it. Another, if I don't mean to go long-winded.
Go for it on this one, then I'll dive in.
But we're kind of like these living batteries, because when we learn about this new fourth phase of water that's hydrophilic and not liquid, not solid, not gas, it's almost this gel-like substance. And we know that the body needs an electric charge to stay healthy. And so we've got this electromagnetic field of our heart and our brain, and then we've got the sun giving us this negative charge and sort of propelling this fourth phase of water through our veins and in our organs, because our hearts are muscles, and muscles are mostly water. And then the electromagnetic field from the earth also offers us those electrons. So in the perfect world, I wanted to bring this up because of you, the barefoot runner, always being grounded, being in that sun, being, in nature, getting that charge. Your body, Michael, is probably just such a well-tuned battery, and it might be part of the reason why your heart and mind and body were able to withstand so many things that you've gone through. But most of us don't spend very much time outside or barefoot, and it's like we're a half-charged phone or half-charged machine. And if you're a half-charged phone or a dying phone, you're not going to really get the word out.
So yeah, let's dive into a few of these then, and it's interesting because when you talked about heart and nature, recently we were looking at different places. Jessica and I are moving shortly, and one of them is along the coast, a beautiful coastline called the Crystal Coast in North Carolina, just this very peaceful area. And I was looking at the forests around, and one of the forests was sold off, and the state called it a win-win because they're going to give the cash windfall to the university, was sold off to be chopped down. And when I read that, I literally felt my heart warble. I had to go to my own because my heart was screaming out that that is not right. And so that connection, like you say, we are nature.
You're right, we are, and I can understand why you would feel a heartbreak. I mean, when we think of, that forest is part of who we are. That's part of our family, right? That's our collective family. We are interdependent from the moment we're conceived. When we're conceived, we're dependent upon the mother's womb. And when we're born, we're dependent on the mother's breast and the mother's touch. And throughout, we're dependent on the air we breathe and the sunlight, and so I can understand that heartache, and I think it's so beautiful that you are in touch with that, because I think things like that break all of our hearts, but we don't pay attention or we don't understand, and so we live our lives really not knowing where this heartbreak comes from, because whether you recognize that we're connected to the earth or not, we are.
I remember being in New York City a couple years ago. I think it was a day that I was teaching a mindful running class in New York City. And as I was walking near, I think it might have been near Times Square, and I saw this, I don't know if it was an eagle or a falcon, came and landed in this tree in the middle of the city. And I'm like, wow, look at that. And a guy with his briefcase or something, finely dressed in New York City, looks up and he goes, nature, I don't do nature.
Sad emoji.
We are nature. You can't. We are not robots. We are not metallic. With the air we breathe, the water we drink. So let's go from there. You have an upcoming summit on the Heart Revolution. You've had over 60 experts on. And so I want to dive into just a few nuggets from each of these. Well, not each of. We're going to talk about maybe a half dozen experts. If I stump you, don't even worry about it, because with over 60 on, there's a lot to remember. First off, this one was weird and wonky and wild and beautiful to me. Gerald Pollack and Blood in the Heart.
Yes, so Gerald Pollack is that scientist from the University of Washington that has been studying water and this fourth phase of water. It's called EZ water, and that stands for exclusion zone, because it's this water that excludes things. It's not, it like pushes things out, and it has this gel-like hydrophilic self-propelling movement that sunlight also helps move. And he talks about the blood and the heart, because we used to think that the heart pumps the blood. But when you look at the size of the heart and the force of the heart, and you look at a tiny capillary, Michael, you understand that that's not really possible. So what scientists like Dr. Pollack have done is sort of build on this hypothesis, this theory that the blood is self-propelling. And there's this like hydrophilic inside of the blood vessels and stuff that kind of just like pulling, you put a straw and the water starts to draw up, or imagine like water going up the trunk of a tree. There's not somebody at the top of that tree slurping it up, right? It's this motion, this automatic motion that water is alive. And it's just a whole new way of looking at blood pressure and circulation and how our hearts work, that they're really much more than a pump, more this like beautiful regulatory dam that helps with that exchange. And his research is really remarkable.
Based on that research, does he have any ideas, tips, thinking of how we heal our heart or get our hearts working better?
So he has some really neat ways that you can make easy water. Like in nature, there's this vortex, right? Or if you think of like rushing rivers and streams, right? Because in nature, we don't really get our water from a municipal water source. So he can tell you the simple thing you can do by creating a vortex in a glass of water, or you can buy something to go into your faucet that'll create that that state.
Making the water alive again.
Yes, making the water more alive. That's one way, definitely a good way to say it. And also, he talks about how they notice in the lab that the easy water moves more quickly, kind of in reaction to light. So again, sunlight is our friend, and it's healthy, and it's good for our circulation. It's good for our heart.
I like that because we all tend to be, not all of us, the majority of us are scared. We've been taught to be scared of sunlight. But it's the most natural thing in the world. There isn't anything more natural than sunlight.
Right.
So let's go from there and let's talk about Alan Christensen and the link between our heart and our adrenals and what that means for us.
Yes, so our adrenal glands really regulate our stress response, like cortisol and norepinephrine, and that kind of fight or flight, which causes your blood vessels to constrict or relax. So he really believes in getting good, healthy sleep to help your adrenals. I mean, that sounds so simple, but how many of us really do get enough sleep? He has information on like the right temperature to sleep in. I think you've had guests on your show talk a little bit about that before.
Yes.
And, foods, like he recommends that you don't let your blood sugar drop. And he is a believer in carbs. There's a lot of people that are anti-carb, but he's a believer in carbs.
And I'm a carb guy now. I've gone full circle and I am strongly carb guy.
Yeah, so he will agree with you, Michael, that carbs are kind of necessary for us to have that regular, keep our blood sugar regular. You have to eat the right ones, and he'll talk about that. But it's important for your adrenal health, which helps, your heartbeat stay regular and your heart rate variability. Because when your blood sugar drops or those stress hormones change, it puts stress on your heart and your blood vessels.
Thank you. So from there, let's talk about, I was fascinated by this one, Joel Kahn, and how we can clear our arteries at any stage of heart disease.
Yes, so Dr. Kahn is really an amazing fellow. He actually just won this award as sexiest vegan doctor.
You go, Joel.
I know. Sexiest vegan doctor over 50, which is such a cool title. But so he is all plant-based, and he believes, and there's people that believe the opposite on the summit too, which is so cool because you can listen to everything and make the right choice for yourself. But he believes that you can reverse heart disease, and that the research shows you can reverse heart disease on a plant-based, meat-free, basically vegan, very low-fat diet. And he says that most of the research about this is done on people who have heart disease. So he feels that, plant-based nutrition is the best. But, you can make that choice for yourself. However, if you do have heart problems, or you do have cardiovascular disease, or you have had a heart attack, he says absolutely vegan, plant-based is the way to go.
It's fascinating. I've heard you talk before about cholesterol and how cholesterol isn't what we think, and that it's actually part of the healing mechanism of the body, the plaque.
Yes. Isn't that fascinating? Cholesterol is so important. It's a building block for our hair, our skin, our nails, our sex hormones. So when people go on cholesterol-lowering medication, they'll often have thinning hair. They'll start having sexual dysfunction. Notice changes like in their skin, fingernails. So, I'm not saying that high cholesterol is good. I'm just saying that, cholesterol is important, and there are better ways to manage cholesterol.
Yeah. So let's go from there. Let's talk about Jonathan Landsman and the connection between our oral health and our hearts.
Yes, so Jonathan Landsman had put on his own summit, the Oral Health Summit, and he had talked about oral health with many biological and integrative dentists. And one of the most fascinating bits of research that's really popular in European biological medicine that also looks at these bodies' meridians. Well, in these meridian systems, the teeth are a real focal point. As a matter of fact, we one time in Naturopathic Doctor News and Review published a really neat article called Teeth, the Guardians of Health. So our teeth are really so important. You know, there's access straight to your bloodstream from your gums. You might, some people that like take cocaine, drugs and stuff, sometimes they'll rub it on their gum, right? Because at least that's what I don't know, or there's like under the tongue medications because things are very available there. So when there's a bacteria in your mouth, it can wreak havoc on your whole immune system. And there is this link between, what is it called when they take your tooth out? I just forgot what
Extraction.
It's called. Yeah, the extraction, the root canal. So the root canal, what happens is they take the root out, but they kind of leave this tooth there. So there's this place for bacteria to grow. So it's like there's this low level of infection that your body is constantly fighting. And the research from biological dentistry, and these are, prominent physicians in this whole field of medicine, show this direct link between the heart and these root canals. And some of the numbers they throw are so amazing that 90% of heart attacks can be attributed to these oral health challenges. So it's really fascinating. Now, if you go to one of these biological, they don't really, there's doctors in the U.S. that practice this, but they have some tools like hyperthermia and stuff that we don't use here in the States. But if you go to one of these cancer clinics in Europe, one of the first things they do is address your oral health. If you have a root canal, they pull the tooth, they look at your whole state of oral health, and that's the first thing that they'll do. So there's an amazing connection between your mouth and your heart, which is symbolically, it's amazing too, because our mouth is where we communicate, and our words are so powerful too. So I just think, he doesn't talk about that, but I just think that's kind of neat. Think about that connection.
The connection between our words and our heart?
Yes, just our mouth in general.
I couldn't agree more. From there, let's talk about Dr. Knut Sroka and our heart's own bypass. Yes,
so there's this amazing body force that we talked about, the life force. And stents are procedures that are done just overwhelmingly done here, especially if you happen to have Medicare. The research shows if you have Medicare insurance, you're like 60% better chance of having a stent put in for angina or just, different symptoms. Now, what he talks about is that your body does this thing called re-angiogenesis, that you've got these collateral arteries that kind of just lay there and kind of in waiting. And when there is a block in an artery, these collateral arteries can open up and create like its own bypass or a detour for another way for blood flow to get to your heart. And it's just really amazing. Now, you have to listen to his interview to learn more because I'm not the expert. But apparently, the more fit you are, like someone like you that's active, those collateral arteries have a better chance of kicking in. Also, those arteries wake up or even start to grow new when you do exercise frequently, because if your body has a greater metabolic demand to take in more oxygen, bring out more waste products, which happens when we exercise, that your body creates these new pathways for blood flow. It's just a miracle.
Awesome. So let's go from there. And this is one that's near and dear to my heart. And so some people might think I'm a little bit out there on this one, but there's a huge body of research on that. Dr. Deborah Davis and smartphones and our health.
Yes. So she is really amazing. She's an epidemiologist. And she really fights the good fight. She was one of the leaders to to try to get the tobacco industry to understand that cigarette smoke caused cancer and heart disease. And there was a big lobby against that for a really long time. So she's kind of a pioneer. And where her heart really is now is through EMF and Wi-Fi radiation. Our hearts and our brains have so much water content, and because they're, the muscle and everything, and they're so susceptible to radiation, it can interfere definitely with your heart rate and your heartbeat and your heart rate variability. As we said, heart rate variability is such an indicator of health. Cardiac health and overall health, because it's kind of this like regulatory system that helps your body meet all its demands to function. She and other researchers really feel that cell phones are the new cigarettes. And there's so many ways, that she tells us to use it more safely, like turn your Wi-Fi off at night.
Yep.
Is one important thing. Be plugged in, hardwired whenever you can. When you have your cell phone with you on your body, always put it on airplane mode. I know that might be difficult because you think, well, I can't just accept any call, but then just set aside times during the day that you're going to check and see who's called. Turn it back on. Never wear it. Like there's this trend now of girls putting their cell phones in their bra strap, like if they don't have a pocket. I don't know if it's because the skinny jeans are so tight now or something. But there are these, that's really hard on your heart. And also there are these new kinds of breast cancer cases that are coming out in young women. So what are some other things? Baby monitors are a very strong source of EMF, and your child's heart and brains are developing. So you definitely want to not use a wireless baby monitor. Smart meters are another source. I actually had our smart meter removed just because I'd had the heart challenges in the past and the fibromyalgia. I'm really sensitive to just the world around me, and I like it that way. I don't see that as I don't see the sensitivity as the challenge. I see the problems that we are aware of as the challenge. So I had my smart meter removed with analog. It took several phone calls to the electric company. But I definitely, whether it's psychological or not, who cares? I sleep better at night now.
Fantastic. So, and I'm impressed that they allowed you, or I don't even know what the wording behind it, but that they did that for you, because I read so much over the years. I'm impressed you were able to get it removed.
Then it's harder in some states and some municipalities than others, but there's research out there, and you can just keep making those phone calls and demand it. And there's groups that can help you too if you search online.
Fantastic. Let's go from there. I guess a last one would be, although not as many people are using them today, if you think wireless, anything wireless can affect us. And so those higher gigahertz portable phones that you have in the house, the wireless phones, you don't think anything of them, but they're blasting you just as much as your cell phone.
Or more, maybe. Yes. You're right, Michael. Thank you for bringing that up.
So let's go from there, and let's talk about heart coherence and Dr. Roland McCready and the Heart Math Institute.
Oh, yeah. So they're just fascinating. The research that they do, they've done a lot of research, of course, on the heart rate variability, and this idea that when your heart rate is in this, kind of smooth sine-like wave, that it really communicates in concert with all of your body systems. And that's when we feel emotionally secure. That's when we are more alert. That's when we can better respond to our environment and to each other, when we can have more control over our emotions. But a lot of the research they're working on right now is the Earth's magnetic field and how it talks to the heart. And the research is just amazing. It shows, Michael, this interdependence between, it's almost like we need the earth and the earth needs us, and just how being out in that nature and being part of this just love fest, the earth, between ourselves and the earth, these waves, we call them electromagnetic waves, but that's just a scientific term. To me, it's love. It's this force. Again, what other name can we think of for a force that's ever giving,
Mm-hmm.
altruistic, constantly striving for growth, constantly giving to you, constantly looking for betterment and health. I mean, to me, that's love.
I think you just gave us another reason to hug a tree.
Let's do it.
Get us in better. What am I doing? Heart coherence. I like
It's
it.
true.
From there, let's go. And this gets into the environment and heart health, and wonder if he has any positive suggestions. Dr. Aruni I knew I wasn't going to get this right. Bhatnagar about the impact of the environment on our heart health.
Yes, so there's just so much there. We've got the heavy metals that are, in the air we breathe. They're in the vaccines that we take and give to our children. They're in our water supply. These have a really difficult effect on the heart because if you think the heart, again, electromagnetic, electricity and metals can change the conductivity. And so it really wreaks havoc on the heart. Also, everything that we take into our body, whether it's the way we eat or drink or breathe or put on our skin, goes into our bloodstream and it passes through our heart. So our heart is really susceptible to just all these toxins, pesticides like glyphosate, the pesticides that your neighbor sprays on their lawn, and then the bees take it from place to place. The body products that you use, they all affect the heart in detrimental ways. And now babies are being born with this heavy toxic load from their birth, and their little hearts are just still developing. So he's really concerned about that in our future. And he's a wonderful part of this event. And he was just, he comes from like a more of an allopathic world as a researcher. And it's really wonderful. He's so happy about the heart revolution.
Cool.
To hear on a little more of a global level people talk about these things and the type of research that he does. So that's definitely one for everyone to watch, because I think it'll help us make better choices for ourselves and for our earth.
Are there a few key things that you would recommend that we take out of our environment or out of what we're putting into or on ourselves first?
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. I don't understand why water is still being sold in plastic bottles or anything, juice, anything like that. I just don't get it. Plastic. People have been kind of brainwashed to think, oh, BPA free, then it's fine. Well, BPA is only one of 80,000 chemicals in our world, and many of these are used to make plastic. Plastic disrupts hormones. Our heart is an endocrine organ. It takes in hormones. It gives off hormones. And, when we think about BPA, then when somebody takes out BPA, then there's others like BPS, BPF. There's all different types of bisphenols. Don't give plastic to yourself or to anyone that you love. Try to just take plastic totally out of your life. Something that everyone should invest in is some type of water filter, because there are so many toxins in our water, pharmaceutical residues, hormones, and what we know from research as well is these endocrine disruptors or hormone disrupting chemicals actually have sometimes a greater effect in minute amounts, and we don't really know why. A lot of research from the Breast Cancer Fund has shown this, that low levels of chemicals can be just as dangerous or more. So really don't put anything in your body or on your body that you wouldn't want to eat.
And I'll back up to plastic for just a minute here. And we're not big fans, Jessica and I, of microwaves. We don't have a microwave in this house. But if you quote, nuke something and it's plastic, then the plastic is heating up, and then that's getting into you as well.
This is really true. That's such a good point, because people heat up dinners and lunches for their kids in the microwave. Even in this homeschool group I belong to, at lunchtime, people are heading over to the microwave and heating up their stuff. And that's something I wish that just the whole world could know. And even when things aren't heated up, plastic is constantly degrading. It's degradable. It's constantly off-gassing. And once you can smell something, it's past your cribiform plate, right? It's in your bloodstream. So if you can smell it, smelling is a way of taking things in. Think of aromatherapy. When you smell, or think about smoking, when somebody smokes marijuana, how do they do it? It gets into their bloodstream through inhalation. When you inhale something, it gets inside of your body.
So let's take two more, as long as we're on this topic. Let's talk about ceramic slow cookers, and then our pots and pans.
Yeah, so ceramic slow cookers you can pretty much guarantee, unless they say lead-free, that the glaze contains lead. I have personally called so many companies and written letters, and they always send back the same information, that this does not exceed whatever the allowable amount of lead, which means there's lead in it. So I tend to just use glass cookware or cast iron. It's getting easier to find glass. I used to have to go to eBay and find like old Visions cookware, but now more and more companies are selling glass cookware. And there's also this company I'm not involved with in any way, but it's called Ancient Cookware, found it online, and they have all natural, unglazed, natural clay, like black Shamba clay. So I use that. People think, oh, well, how, I can't cook it all day on the stove. That's not true. A slow cooker is just basically, 200 degrees plugged into electrical. You can put it in your oven at 200 degrees, get a nice clay or glass Dutch oven or cast iron, and you can still cook something slow while you're at work all day in the oven at a really low temperature.
I love it, because when you heat up the ceramic, I didn't know this until actually being on your site. When you heat up the ceramic, you're actually getting the lead out of the ceramic, or out of that sealing glaze in there and into your food.
Correct. That's right. Yes.
So Teflon, aluminum.
Yeah, aluminum is just too, there's, aluminum has been shown to cause dementia and Alzheimer's disease and other problems, heart problems as well. So you just want to stay away from aluminum. And Teflon, these PFOAs, are not only in frying pans, but they're also in like outdoor gear to keep them waterproof. It's almost impossible to find gear that doesn't have that. So I don't have a good solution for that.
Wow.
But anything that repels, so the non-stick surfaces, the waterproof surfaces, you want to just really do what you can to avoid those, because they are carcinogens.
Thank you. So before we start to wrap things up, what are a few last tips that you would give that you've learned from going through this experience that are like critical things? If somebody came to you and they're struggling with their heart health, where are you going with them? Yeah,
so I think the first thing is to understand that the way we treat heart disease is really a sales pitch, and find a holistic team of practitioners or a holistic practitioner to help you get right with food. The other thing is, no one person can tell you what the right way to eat is. You need to learn that. You have to know more about your body than your doctor does. So you have to, you also can't just go by like an allergy test. You have to know how you feel when you eat this food. Does it make your heart race? Does it make you itch? So what I learned through listening to all the experts of the Heart Revolution is that they all have amazing tips, and you have to take what works for you. Now, Dr. Ben Lynch and Peter D'Adamo are both like genomic and genetic medicine pioneers, and it's really neat because they have this marriage between genetics and natural medicine that I don't see any other types of practitioners doing. They're both naturopathic doctors. And they were both getting so deep into the science and everything. But one of the favorite tips that Dr. D'Adamo, who has this Center of Excellence in Genomic Medicine, said to me, one of the best things you can do for your genes is to hug your loved one.
Woohoo! I love it. There's one last tip that you gave me that we were talking, I think it was about a week ago, and I've been big into the cold shower thing, although recently my vata has been surprisingly, from an Ayurvedic perspective, a little bit out of balance, and so I kind of backed off from the cold showers, but I started trying what you, I think, call hydrotherapy of 12 seconds on, hot, cold, hot, cold. Wow, I've done it for a week straight. That's been feeling great.
I'm so happy. Yes, it's this old naturopathic idea that is called hardening the body, right? Is like, because in nature we're exposed to all these elements. It's not just this straight, 72 degrees all the time, feet warm, head warm. So hydrotherapy does that. It hardens the body. It stimulates your immune system. It helps the blood flow pump by the hot and the cold, and the hot and the cold contrast. And when you end in cold, it forces your body to like kind of warm up. So it kind of strengthens your immune system. And it is one of my favorite things to do when I'm coming down with a cold, if I have food poisoning, if I'm feeling tired, if I haven't got enough sleep. Just good old hardening of the body through hydrotherapy. Start with hot water as hard as you can, hot as you can. And then you switch it to cold water. You try to do it for 12 seconds each, as cold as you can. You want to feel that because all those little blood vessels and capillaries are kind of like closing off. And then when you put the hot back on, it kind of opens them up again and creates this pump. And you want to end in cold, but you don't want to be like shivering, so that's why you start with hot, because you want to create that contrast, but you don't want to deplete yourself, which sounds like what's happening to you.
Yeah, and so you're doing that for 12 rounds if you can. 12 rounds at 12 seconds each.
Yeah.
So Jessica always likes me to ask, and thank you so much. And I'm gonna go keep continuing to do that because, particularly sitting, I was looking this week at a calendar of how many hours I'm sitting a week. Completely insane. And now I'm looking at all the different standing options. I just don't know how to run the show yet standing at my desk. I'm going to figure that out. But going into that, doing that hydrotherapy, those little aches and pains from, I think, sitting too much have been going away, which is really cool. So before we really wrap things up, Jessica always likes me to ask a question at the end for parents and kids. Rather than going parents and kids for heart health, although I think that's important, maybe you can tell us real briefly about unschooling.
Unschooling, yes. So I homeschool my kids, and for a long time I called myself a homeschooler until I reluctantly admitted to myself and the world that we actually unschool. And unschooling is this world phenomenon that's happening in every city, in every community, where instead of giving a child a set curriculum saying like, okay, today you're 7 years old, so that means you need to learn this and this and this and this, and by the 100th day of school you have to show this and test for this. It says that the child has its own innate intelligence and desire for things it has an aptitude for, and you follow their lead. Unschooling is not like you just let them watch TV all day. Unschooling is you find what the child's interest is. Like one of my daughters just loves cooking and baking. So we learn science and math and physics and the world around us and reading and writing through baking and making up recipes. And my other daughter is really into reading the Harry Potter books. So we take that as a way to learn about herbs, and she's learning about like friendships and loyalty and these different themes, which I think are just as important as learning math and reading and writing. And then she kind of creates like alternative endings for some of the chapters, so it's creative writing as well. So unschooling, there's really no rules, and my children are very smart and well-adjusted, as any parent would say about their own children. But we do it on our own schedule, to our own interest. And I really urge anyone who's piqued by this idea to do some research, because Peter Gray, who has a really wildly popular blog on Psychology Today, called Freedom to Learn. He wrote a book called Free to Learn, and he is a big proponent of unschooling, and he's done so much research. He says that this kind of institutionalization of children has caused them to be less resilient, more afraid, more, less able to respond to their environment or social situations. They aren't thinking for themselves. They don't know how to create their own jobs. Instead, they're looking for other people to create that for them. So he's got a lot of research. Also, play. Children in traditional schools have like 15 to 30 minutes of play a day. And play is not just something for fun. It's an instinct. It's how we naturally learn. And there's a lot of research with that too here at the Heart Revolution.
Awesome. And we had, I think it was quite a while ago, we had Peter on the show, probably about a good year ago.
Fantastic. I missed that one then.
So you'll be able to go back, and you can go onto our website and type in his name, and you'll be able to find that.
Please do.
So before I let you, well, I guess we got three last things. First off, where can people go? What's your website, and where can people go to catch the Heart Revolution?
So the Heart Revolution is at theheartrevolution.org. Mm-hmm. And when you register there, you automatically get 2 free of the interviews. You get one from Sayer G., founder of Green Med Info, who talks about the scientific basis for natural medicine. Yeah. And then the other one you get is Dr. Stephen Stosny, who is an expert on grief and resentment and compassion. I first heard about him years ago when he was on Oprah Winfrey, and I was fascinated about his research. He had a very abusive childhood, and he took that experience to learn about compassion and anger, and now he helps people. He's helped like 6,000 couples and many individuals all around the world kind of heal from those problems. And then February 25th through March 5th is when the summit goes live. And so when you register, you get an email every day of that day's segments, and I hope that it helps everyone learn to heal and follow their hearts.
Fantastic. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And if you didn't catch theheartrevolution.org, just come on over to inspirenationshow.com and we'll get you over there as well. So before we do a brief meditation at the end, any last words of wisdom you want to share with people about their hearts and heart health?
Well, the body has this amazing ability to heal, and I think at the Heart Revolution, you'll find so many people, but there's also Dr. Charlie Cropley, who is 70 years old, but he looks like he's 50. And he has these teachings called radical self-healing. And it's one of my favorite interviews. And just this ongoing theme that I just want everyone to remember is that your body can heal, your heart can heal. I know that you're a living example of that, Michael, with everything that you've been through. My life has shown the same. And I just want everyone to be empowered to just connect with nature, connect with themselves, because you are nature and your body can heal. It can take care of itself.
What is it that you say? Nature is love and love is medicine?
Yes, because the people always say food is medicine. So I say, well, food is nature. And nature is love, so love is medicine.
Woohoo! So thank you so much for being on the show today. Before I let you go, do you have a brief meditation you wouldn't mind sharing with us?
I would love to. And is it okay if we do this one with our eyes open? I mean, if you prefer to close your eyes.
And can people do this driving down the road, or should they save this for later?
I believe all meditation should not be done when driving.
Thank you.
Okay, so first let's take a deep breath in and out. Breathe in again and feel the way the breath feels coming in through your nose, into your lungs, and know as you breathe out, as that's happening, there's this magical exchange of gases, of nutrients in the air, that your body intuitively takes in what it needs. It does its magic and absorbs right into your bloodstream to feed every living cell in your body. And even though you can't see this, it's happening intuitively. It's happening intelligently. So let's take one more deep breath in and out. And then I'd like you to take your hands and place your hands in front of you. And I'd like you to look at the palms of your hands and notice the lines of the palms of your hands and just feel the energy of what it feels like to hold your hands out there. And I want you to close your hands gently and open your hands. And just marvel as you close and open your hands that this is something you're able to do by just thinking about it. That your body's intelligence can take these hands to do everything that you want to do throughout your day. As you look at your hands, notice that you can use these hands to bring healthy food into your body. You can use these hands to hug or touch someone you love. You use these hands to do the important work you do to make your mark upon the world. Turn your hands over to the other side and notice how your hands are different from the nails to the knuckles. Your nails are amazing. They help you grasp things. They can help you climb a tree. They can help you break something open that you need, whether it's a coconut or a package from Amazon. And as you look at your hands, feel the energy of how your hands are connected to your whole body. Go up, feel that energy from your shoulders up to your neck, down your spine, down to your legs, to the bottom of your feet. And now you can set your hands back down into your lap. And I want you to take another deep breath in and breathe out. And notice the room around you. Notice your place in the room around you. Notice where the room is in the building or the home around you. Notice where your home is or the building you're in the neighborhood around you, in the city around you, in the state that you're in your country, on this earth. This is all happening even though our vision right now, our visual field, only sees what is right in front of us. We are on this earth, in this multiverse, in these galaxies. And at the same time, our heart knows how to beat constantly. It beats without thinking about it. Again, bringing in nutrients from the world around us, giving off waste and things we don't need. And at every moment, it's constantly building and helping you stay healthy. You're thinking your thoughts, you're living your life, you're having your relationships. The colors around you are all helping you to take in messages from what you see. Every decision you make is based on these senses that you have. What do you smell right now? What do you hear right now? All of these are coming inside of your own body. And it's just magical. And I want you to really appreciate and give thanks to yourself right now for being who you are in this larger multiverse, on this planet Earth, in the country you're in the state you're in the city you're in the neighborhood that you are in the room that you are sitting in right now. Your body is working hard, loving you, taking care of you. And when you do practices like this, you can better understand how miracle you are, how beautiful you are, how loved you are by the earth, by the universe, by God. And I'd like us to just take another deep breath in and out and take in the gratitude of how magical and powerful you are and what an important part you are of this life that you are living. And that's all.
Woohoo! Thank you so much. On that note, what does bring you the greatest happiness or the woohoo factor?
Definitely my children, I think, bring me the greatest happiness. But I've really learned to appreciate just like the simple exercise that we just did, like how, sometimes we can feel insignificant, but how special am I? Are you the listener, that you have this amazing body that does these beautiful things, and you have all these senses that you can experience each other and the world and food and the environment and your pets and animals. It's just such a beautiful gift. And when I think about that, it just makes me so happy.
Woohoo! It's time to let you go, but I have to double back on something. I was just called during the meditation, and I tried to say no, and it just kept coming back up. Heart tips for our kids.
Oh, yes, that's excellent. Play for sure. Let your kids play. Their curiosity is an instinct that they have, and they need that for the world around them. Also, limit electronics. I know it's hard, but kids need to use their own senses and their own mind and let them explore the world around them. And I think that will show that they'll have a healthier heart. Let them get outside, unplug them, and let them just kind of be free to roam. And I think that that's the best health tip that you can give for your kids, because when they are more in tune with the world around them, it's going to be easier for them to feel and be embodied in their own body and to make better choices as they grow.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, it's been so
Thank you, Mike.
fantastic. It's been.
Thank you.
We're in coherence. You go, Razi.
I just say that I just love Inspire Nation. I think it's such a beautiful thing that you've taken your hardships and turned it into something so beautiful to inspire so many people. I'm so honored to be on the show, because the guests that you have on the show are just such an amazing company to be in, and I'm so grateful.
And you are doing the work, Razi, and you have so much to share with everybody. It's been amazing, your journey, and you are truly shining bright. So it is our honor, my honor, to have you on the show. Thank you. So, for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, check out the Heart Revolution, and heal your own heart, and shine bright. Woohoo! Awesome. Thank you, Razi.
Thank you, Michael. That was really wonderful. I really appreciate you.
I appreciate you as well. This was fantastic, and I know it's going to, oh geez, forgive me, touch people's hearts.
I hope it does. You've definitely touched mine, and we forgot to tell everybody that you're on the Heart Revolution.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel, where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much, and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!